Hello, and welcome to another episode of What Do You Call It podcast. I'm your host, GB. Today's guest, Why Be a Man, Where You Can Be an Animal, a graduate of the ROH dojo. He's professional wrestling's vicious little bastard. So glad I get to say that. Please give it up for the RABID Honey Badger, Ryan Mooney. How you doing today, mate? You all good?
Oh, I'm doing good. I've come out of a long hibernation while I was at work today, and I'm ready to take the night by storm.
Love it, mate. Love it. We're going to have a fun chat. Been a fan of yours for a while. Listen to your podcast as well with one of my mates, One Stop Wrestling. Shout out to them. Cheap plug. And I really enjoyed it. So I thought, got to have them on here. And before I do talk about you becoming the Rabid Honey Badger, I want to rewind the clocks. I'd like to know what got you into wrestling in the first place.
Oh man. Well, a lot of people's stories and upbringings, I think, with wrestling involves kind of like watching it on TV as like a kid,
Yeah.
or as an adolescent, the people who are going through like the Monday Night Wars with WCW and WWF. For
Hmm.
me, it was a little bit different. I got exposed to wrestling through video games, actually,
Nice.
before I ever knew about wrestling on TV.
Yeah.
So I remember that as a kid, I had like a best friend who had an older cousin that he lived with, who was like a teenager and was allowed to play like the violent video
Hmm.
game, like the blood and the explosions and the guns and bullets and all
Yeah.
that. So I remember that most days after school, before my parents picked me up and took me home, I'd go to this friend's house who lived near our school, and we would play with his older cousin all of the video games.
Hmm.
So we're talking SmackDown, Shut Your Mouth, SmackDown, Here Comes the Pain, SmackDown versus
Best
Raw.
video game, by the way. Here Comes the Pain.
Yes,
Everyone says No Mercy, but Here Comes the Pain. I'm sorry, it's untouchable. But now continue it. Sorry.
I can't speak to No Mercy myself, even though I've heard that it's God tier video gaming, wrestling
Yeah.
video gaming. I missed it. I just missed it. So I was playing those video games with my friend. My uncle also gave me one of the old WCW Nitro games.
Hmm.
Uh, I remember that very vividly. And I didn't watch WCW. I had no idea who the people were. I
Yeah.
knew Hulk Hogan, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. That's it. That's all I knew. And I remember always playing like the Battle Royals, and I remember playing as Hulk Hogan because he was the only one I knew.
Yeah.
And I remember Sting, poetically enough, would always be the one to like throw me out of the ring in the Battle Royal, beat me. I could never beat Sting as Hulk Hogan. It was rigged. But anyway, I remember being exposed to like the roster of all these guys, and Here Comes the Pain, the guys and the girls, and just the different characters and the
Hmm.
different personalities and the larger
It's
than
like
life.
so colorful. Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna
Yeah,
say
it was
larger than
so
life,
colorful
superheroes, and
and boisterous. It felt like larger than life, like a comic book or like superheroes do, like on a big movie screen. I remember like, my first time seeing like a character like Rey Mysterio or Ultimo Dragon, like the masks and the attires and the logos, on
hmm
their tights and stuff. So it was really cool. It was a real trip, man. And the just arcadey style of gameplay and violence was really cool. Throwing your friends off of like buildings and having them still survive and
you
stuff
didn't
like
attempt any of this at home, did you?
no, no,
All right.
no.
So your friends survived then. Okay. Cool.
Probably tried to replicate it as much as we humanly possibly could, but no one F5'd me off of my friend's roof or anything like that. It didn't quite get that extreme, but I got exposed that way first.
Yeah.
And then I started, catching it on television.
Hmm.
And then I had a little bit of a background already seeing the guys and the girls on the games. And that's when I started like following the storylines and
Yeah.
following the matches from week to week on SmackDown and Raw. And that's kind of like what initially hooked me
Hmm.
was the video gaming side of things. So I think that's a pretty cool, unique kind of like foray into the wrestling world
No,
compared to what
definitely. I
some
mean,
others
most people
do.
say like, "Oh, I randomly watched it when like a family member was watching it, and or I saw it in the magazine or whatever." But for you to actually play the video games and then get into it, that's pretty different. But it's pretty cool to hear the backstory, though. I know you mentioned a few names, but who were some of your favorites when you actually were watching it properly?
I would say that the first person that caught my attention immediately was probably Rey Mysterio.
Yeah.
I think the concept of the mask was so fascinating to me because he looked like a superhero come to life to me. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like Spider-Man or, somebody of that nature. And it really resonated with me just seeing all of these aerial maneuvers and these amazing highlight reel moments, that Rey
Yeah.
Mysterio was kind of pulling off in America that had never really been seen here before, right? He was one of those guys that was kind of innovating that cruiserweight
Mhm.
style,
Where it's
like
kind
back.
of like Land of the Giants and people like you have mentioned, Hogan
Yeah,
and
certainly.
Sting and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, because of the superhero like presentation and the fact that he clicked with me because of the fact that he was this regular sized guy like in this world of just Goliaths and giants,
Hmm.
and would have to go the extra mile, have to get creative to try and beat these guys. I always thought that his matches were really, really interesting because they were
Yeah.
so different than just, the 300-pound meatheads throwing each other around,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
muscle
Like the
each other.
test
Not
of
that that's not
strength and,
entertaining. It is. Not that it's not entertaining. It is,
Oh,
but
yeah.
there's
Yeah.
just
But it's good to have
more,
different, isn't it?
yeah, something more about that. So I would say like Rey Mysterio because of that.
Hmm.
And Shawn Michaels was another one that caught my attention just because of at the time I didn't understand it, but like the little things that he was doing, like when he was wrestling, you know what I mean? Like the
Hmm.
facial expressions, the body movements, the way he would, sell like different moves and
We build up to
maneuvers.
things, even just like, just small things, like just to kick up, look around the crowd and
Yep.
just, oh,
The
Shaw's my
college
favorite, my
play.
favorite wrestler of all time, by the way. I adore him.
So those are a couple of guys that I would
Mhm.
say. I could rattle off a whole list, like the
Yeah.
guys like Jericho and other people like that, Undertaker. But that's like a small like
Mm.
cluster of
But
people.
Ray and Sean are the ones that stick out to you, and they're the ones like, oh, wow, okay, they're like top of the list.
Yeah, I would say if I would like if I were gonna quantify it down to, I'm gonna pick one from like each show that I was watching every week.
Yeah.
I would say I always wanted to tune into SmackDown to see what Rey Mysterio was doing, and I
Hmm.
always wanted to tune into Raw to see what Shawn Michaels was doing.
Yeah. No, I get you, man. I get you. I gotta ask because you actually end up in ROH dojo
Mhm.
very early in your career. And
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get into like, actually challenging for the world title really, really early in your career. Some people don't even achieve that. But before I touch on that, I want to ask if you can briefly run us through the Ring of Honor dojo, how tough it was, how many days did you train, who were your coaches, and also how did you end up there to begin with?
Yeah, so I mean, I think as people go along, wrestling was super popular like in the 90s, right? Like
Hmm.
it was really big in pop culture. Everybody was watching it, like everyone and their mother was watching it, right? Even
Yeah.
if they weren't wrestling
Yeah.
fans and talking about it at school, talking about it at work. But eventually, we went through a period after the Attitude Era where things kind of started dipping down
Yeah.
and people started tuning out. And that's kind of what happened to my like whole like friend group in like school, right? Like my friends like stopped like watching it and stopped playing the video games. But
Mm.
for some reason, I didn't lose the bug. Like I kind of became more interested in it and wanted to like go further down the rabbit hole.
Hmm.
So I started, learning a little bit more about like the alternative wrestling products, doing like research and stuff. So I found, like, for example, I found TNA, like when TNA was like starting to, gain some more steam and gain some more momentum because of the WWE guys, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, hey, Kurt Angle just went
Mm.
to TNA.
Oh
Like,
shit, Christian Cage is in the Impact Zone and
Christian
Dudley Boys
Cage is
and
there. Like Sting, I know Sting a little bit. Like Sting's there. I gotta watch and see what's going on here. And
Mhm.
then from there, I would see all of the guys that ended up becoming like, my independent wrestling heroes, like the Christopher Danielses and the AJ Styles, Samoa Joes, and the Motor City Machine Guns, like all those people. So TNA, and then from there, I found out about Ring of Honor because of the guys who became big in WWE that were from
Mm.
that system and from TNA. So like at a certain point, we get to a point where like CM Punk and Daniel Bryan are mentioning like Ring of Honor on WWE TV, right? So I want to like research it and find out
Mm.
more about it. So
Oh, these guys started here. Maybe I can do that.
yes, absolutely. And it got to a point where I thought like I was in like high school and I was thinking about like college planning because like our school counselors and stuff were talking to us about that at that point. And I started thinking like, what am I going to do with my life? I couldn't like figure it out. I was trying to think about all these different career paths and where my life was going to head. Was I going to go to college? Was I going to just try to work like a job, go to trade school, whatever. So I thought to myself, I was like, man, like I feel like I should try this wrestling thing to like just see if it's something that would be for me, see if it's something that I would be able to adapt to and be good at. And even if it doesn't work out, then at least I wouldn't have to wake up like one day and be like, oh man, like
I
I
wish I
really,
gave it a go.
yeah, I wish I had
100%.
tried it when I had the chance. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I started looking around for wrestling schools around the time that I was in college, like third year of college. And
Mhm.
the story about why that ended up happening was kind of around the same time I was looking for schools. And I literally like Googled like what are the top wrestling schools in America? Like that's literally it. It was like
Yeah.
a list of like 10. It was like Wild Samoans, Santino Brothers, I think. And like Ring of Honor Dojo was like down on the list somewhere. And I saw that that was in Pennsylvania, which was like right outside of Philly, which is near me,
Yeah, I was
right?
gonna
So
say like American geography is over my head, that one.
yeah, right. But like for anybody who understands that, like it's very close
Yeah.
in proximity, very
Yeah.
accessible. For somebody like me. And what happened at the same time, which was really interesting, because talks about how like, like life kind of happens and we just kind of have to adapt to it.
Hmm.
My mom, at the same time that I was researching all of these schools, like in the summertime, had been diagnosed with like breast cancer.
Oh,
And
sorry to hear,
the
mate.
I appreciate that. And the reason why that's important to the story, I'm not just throwing that out there just to throw it out
No,
there.
no, no. I respect you
I,
telling me. Thank you.
I considered for a time not training because I was like, no, like, well, I told my mom too. I was like, Mom, like, this is something that just happened. Like, we need to all be like hands on deck. Like, we need to, pick up some extra slack so that we can help you and take a load off your plate while you're going through treatment and
Yeah,
all
yeah,
this
yeah.
stuff. And I was gonna put off my training for like at least 6 months, and then who knows, it may have never happened after that point too.
Yeah.
And what happened was my mom basically like kind of sat me aside and told me, she was like, this happening to our family right now is all the more reason why you should go do this right now.
Hmm.
Because you need to do this now. You need this. Like, this is something our family like needs. Like, you need this in your life. You need that outlet, that thing that you can use to like channel your passion and your energy
Yeah.
into to give you a distraction from all this stuff that's going on. Like, this will be good for your mental health. So I kind of owe like everything that I've had in wrestling like to my mother for kind of like pushing me to do it
Yeah.
like right there in the
Especially what she's
moment. And
going through, but like like I think she kind of understands from that perspective. Like life is short, and
yeah,
wants you to sort of achieve your goals. And
and
yeah, obviously, I absolutely respect that, mate. Absolutely.
I think she was reminded like because of that life is
Yeah.
not guaranteed, and like if you're gonna do something, like why not just do it now,
Yeah. Definitely.
So I took a chance and I went. Thankfully, too, just a side note, thankfully, my mom ended up successfully going through treatment and has been cancer free for almost 6 years at this point.
That's awesome, man. That's fucking good to hear.
Yeah, so that's great, and that ended up working out wonderfully. But so I showed up. I got an interview at the school to like
Hmm.
talk about like coming, and I thought I was gonna talk to like somebody in like a suit, or some random businessman. And I show up the one day, and like Cheeseburger's there, my trainer,
Hey,
and I'm
I
just
will ask you about cheese, but I've got it, man. But
yeah,
that's the story, man.
we can talk about him. And I'm just like, what are you like? What's he doing here? Like, I just because I had seen a to backtrack a little bit, I had gone to my first live Ring of Honor show
Yeah.
like about 6 months like before I went to the school. And Cheeseburger was actually in the first ever Ring of Honor match that I saw live
Oh,
at like
nice.
the Final Battle pay-per-view in 2015. So it's kind of cool to like the first person I ever saw wrestle for Ring of Honor is
Yeah.
like the first person that greets me at the door, like coming into the school. And we sit down and we have like this interview and we like talk about wrestling for like 30 minutes. Like, why do you want to come to the school? Like, why are you interested in being in wrestling? Um, and then eventually I decided to give it a try and sign up. And I started training on my birthday that year. So I turned 21, and like my 21st birthday gift to myself was to go to wrestling training. And I show up and I'm expecting to be like in a boot camp or something
Yeah.
with like a million people, like kind of like one person just like lost in the
So a
shuffle.
bit like tough enough or something like that.
Yeah, or something like of that nature. And I was like nervous about it a lot because I was like, oh man, like I don't know like if they're gonna be like really strict or they're gonna be like military drill sergeants. So I could like hide in the background and like not get a lot of individual attention, which is what I was thinking, right?
Yeah.
And I show up and I'm like the only person there. And I asked him like Cheeseburger, and because my three trainers too from the beginning who trained me from scratch were Cheeseburger, a guy who wrestled for Ring of Honor and then did some backstage producing and stuff for them named Will Ferrara, and then Delirious. So I expected there to be more people, and I was like, "Where is everybody?" They were like, "It's like you're the only one who signed up for this class, like this incoming class," and I'm like, "Oh, holy hell!" So like from the beginning, like I'm being trained like from the ground up
Mm.
by these Ring of Honor, tenured guys in combination with like the more advanced people that are like rolling through the school,
Oh wow.
they're coming to like train and like not build their foundation but like add to it.
Yeah.
So I jumped into it. I started training as many times a week as I possibly could, so I could try and like accelerate the process
Hmm.
of learning the skills and building my wrestling foundation, because I wanted to like wrestle, like, you know what I mean, as soon as possible. But yeah, those are the guys that, kind of like, raised me and bred me to be the wrestler that I am now. So without them too, none of this happens in the first
So you
place at
definitely
all.
owe them a lot. With the training itself, was there anything that you found yourself kind of struggling with? Any difficulties? But especially where you're going with people that are advanced and that you're not necessarily on their level just yet. So did you find, oh, I can't keep up, or even maybe mentally, like promos or anything that kind of stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff because wrestling is so weird. Like,
Mm.
it doesn't make any sense, like from a human perspective. Okay. And the reason why I say that is because when you go, you're like literally learning how to reprogram your body to like fall in specific positions
Hmm.
and protect yourself on the way down. And your body does not want to do that. Like it's programmed to keep you alive and survive, and it does not want you to put yourself in any kind of danger,
Yeah.
however like small. So that's hard to like get over that mental hurdle of like I'm not supposed to be like falling, or my body's not supposed to flip in the air and land on my back. So that was something that was hard to kind of get over at the beginning, was like, learning how to like take bumps and just allow it to happen, or allowing people to hit you with like a clothesline or
Hmm.
something like that, and not like scrunching up or like, getting all tight and getting yourself hurt.
With your
So
graduation, oh, sorry, mate, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'll let you continue.
no, I would say, yeah, I'll say a couple more things. Like the cardio was a really big thing.
Yeah.
Like there's no kind of cardio like wrestling cardio. Like you could go to the gym every day and, run on a treadmill or do an elliptical machine or a stairmaster, and it still won't prepare you for that conditioning that you need in order to, have a match and make sure
Mm.
that you're taken care of and your opponent is
And not getting
protected.
blown up, sort of thing. Yeah.
That and then the promo thing you said too. I'll touch on that because that's hard too, to like stand in front of a bunch of people with a camera on you and like try to tell us a story or try to invest people in like a match or your character. Especially too at the time too. Like I was me. I was just,
Mm.
Ryan, like me, like in real life, the person. I didn't have a character. I didn't have a gimmick to fall back on. So cutting promos was like really hard thing to do because I was like, I still don't know who I am. So how am I supposed to do this? So
Which makes sense. So you're still quite early on in your career and still training.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So those things, those like three aspects of wrestling, like that's why I say that wrestling is so weird. It's like
Yeah.
something that like it's just unnatural, like to do it from a human perspective. Entertaining as hell to watch it, but to actually try and do it is such a weird thing to try and reconcile with your body and your
Mm.
brain.
That's why I sit here and talk to the wrestlers. I mean, I've only done one training myself, and now I was like, I'm gonna get Mike, get a camera, and I'll talk to wrestlers and remain a fan. But I do respect anyone. Even as a fan, I get fucked up. Maybe go, it's fake. I'm just like, fuck off. But yeah, so I'll get one up with that if that gets said to me. But yeah, no, that's cool, man. Yeah. So going back to what I was gonna say, so I didn't mean to cut you off then. graduation. I want to know, what was that like with the actual graduation when you got told, okay, you're ready to go out and wrestle for Ring of Honor?
Yeah. So, when that happened to me, they say that there's no exact timetable for when you're going to, like graduate or be ready. Like they say, everyone's journey is different. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what they told me right at the beginning. They say, like, on average, it would probably take you like 6 months of full-time training to be prepared to have like a basic match on a show and, to be okay. But not everybody is going to get there at that rate, but
Hmm.
that was kind of like what happened. That was what happened to me. I went very much like the average or semi-accelerated pace. And what happened is I actually had to go to something that was called like a Ring of Honor dojo tryout, where they used to have them at the Ring of Honor dojo, where they would have wrestlers like sign up and like come for the weekend to like train in front of a bunch of like talent scouts.
Oh,
So
wow.
it
So
was
it
a
wasn't
bunch.
just for the actual graduates or people that were actually officially with the dojo, but just with
No,
wrestlers across, America.
yeah, just like anybody, like,
Oh,
and
right.
people from like other countries, like even come there as well. Like I think even
Mm,
there was a tag team that came from over from like Germany or something. And
bloody hell.
so what happened was is basically like these people were coming because they were like, experienced wrestlers trying to get a spot with Ring of Honor. People like, I'll give you names off the top of my head, like people like MJF were there, and Flip Gordon, and JD Drake from AEW as
Yeah.
well. So those were people that were there to actually try and get into Ring of Honor, trying to get a spot,
Wow.
impressing like the people on the panel, like Delirious, like the Briscoes, like Christopher Daniels, Jay Lethal, those people. But Delirious, kind of told me in his weird, dialect, like jumbled
So
up.
he is actually like that, by the way, just to clarify. Like he
Of,
is.
of course. Do you think that somebody would actually like talk like that if it wasn't their real natural way of speaking? But they helped me decipher. Berger helped me decipher what he was saying. He basically was telling me, he said, like, you should do this tryout because
Yeah.
even though you're not, trying out for Ring of Honor, like you'll get a lot of good experience.
Yeah.
So I ended up, going and doing that. Like this kid who had hardly any experience, I showed up and I, did the tryout as if I was trying to get a job with Ring of Honor. And I got a lot of positive feedback, but like, I wasn't like a TV ready person or anything like that. Like I'm
Hmm.
literally showing up with like a pair of like old tights that were given to me that were like sewn for Matt Seidel, right? Because I think Delirious's wife, like previous girlfriend, Daisy Hayes, like
Yeah.
made here for wrestlers. So I was wearing like old Matt Seidel tights and like Spartan kick pads that were given to me by my other trainer, Will.
Yeah.
So I was like a creator wrestler. You know what I mean? Just a bunch of random stuff thrown
Go
together.
back to the video
Um,
games. Yeah.
from the video games, right? So another tie into that. But I did the tryout and I got a lot of positive feedback from everybody that was there. And it was kind of a cool experience because I remember like MJF, like I talked to him a little bit at the time, and he was still like trying to break out on the scene, not
Mhm.
like how much of like a star he is now, but he came up to me and like asked me at the time, how far along into this are you? And I told him like, I don't know, man. I'm about like 6 months of training in. And it was funny at the time because he actually said, don't tell him I told you this, but he said, oh wow, and you're already better than me? Like, that's not fair. So that was kind of a cool little like experience that I had with him.
Yeah.
But so I did the tryout, and then after that, they kind of told me they were like, okay, like, you're not ready for any kind of like TV spot, but you can go out and start trying to get like bookings on like independent shows. Like we're
Mm.
comfortable sending you out there and letting you represent the Ring of Honor dojo out on the indie scene. So, I got like a booking in New York. That was like my first one. I went with my one of my trainers and a couple other guys who were on the card. And I had my first match like in March of 2017. And the rest was history. I
Mm.
wrestled a man who I don't think he wrestles any longer, and he wears a lot of baby oil. So I got baby oil slicked all over me
What's his
during this.
name?
His name was Damian Gibbs, and he was from a place called Wrestle Pro. which was created by a guy who works for AEW, Pat Buck.
Yeah.
But anyway, nice guy, lovely human being. It was fun working with him and fun wrestling him. But I got baby oil all over myself. That part I did not like whatsoever.
Welcome to the wrestling business.
I know. It's like, here's your initiation, kid. Welcome to the wrestling business. So that was kind of how I got into wrestling and how I got that first match. I'm going to turn my light on real quick just because it's getting dark.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. That's cool. For those listening to the audio, the light has come on, just so you know. No, that's cool, man. That's cool. And for you to do all this like 6 months, that's pretty impressive. I mean, there's people that train for years, and then they'll have a match. Everyone's different. I think you've kind of made a point of that as well with your story. Everyone, advances different levels, and you actually challenged for the world title pretty early on in your career. Some people will never achieve that in their careers. That's just kind of the way it is. But for you to do that, you actually won the Royal Rumble this year, Cody Rhodes. I want to know, how was that experience for you so early on in your career?
Man, that was such a trip too, because that was like one of my like first Ring of Honor like matches. In fact, I think it was my exact first Ring of Honor match. And it was in the 2300 arena in Philadelphia, the ECW arena, which was the place where I saw my first Ring of Honor live show too.
Oh,
so
wow.
like coming full circle kind of moment.
Yeah, definitely.
And to have that moment with a guy that, I literally grew up like watching him on TV, like as like a young kid into like an adult, young adult, as a teenager. And it was such a weird moment to share the ring with a guy like Cody Rhodes. But, I went into that match thinking I need to try and come up with a way to make this memorable. Like try to create a moment out of it for myself. So I thought, like, at the time he was doing this gimmick where
the ring,
had the ring of honor that like make people like kiss it and stuff, like he was like a king or something. And I thought to myself, I was like, what should I do? I was like brainstorming ideas, I'm like on like a chalkboard or something, and I'm like, should I like bite the ring off his finger? And I was like, no. I was like, Minoru Suzuki already did that. No, I can't do that. I was like, should I suck the ring off of his finger and put it in my own mouth? Like, and I was like thinking it's crazy and weird. And I was like, and that's exactly why I want to do it. Because it's crazy and weird, and it's like completely out there and unorthodox. So I said, I asked him, I was like, hey, you're doing this like ring thing, and I wanted to ask you, like, would it be cool if like we did this? And he was like, yeah, like that's kind of an interesting idea. Let's try that. So we ended up doing that, and like that was the most memorable part of the whole match, was that one part right at the beginning. And like we had a little bit of a back and forth, and then he hit me with the crossroads, and I lost. But what a cool way to like be introduced to like a television product for the first time, to wrestle for a major world championship, and to do it against a guy that like now won the Royal Rumble and a main event WrestleMania this year, and maybe
who actually ran with your idea.
Yeah. So it was super cool.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. I mean, there's been a few names in Ring of Honor that you've wrestled. Shane Taylor, friend of the show, Anthony Green, and there is a standout to me. And I asked you before, but early on in your Ring of Honor career, Jay Briscoe, part of the Briscoe brothers. So along with Mark, I mean, sadly the wrestling world did unfortunately lost him not long ago. But I wanted to know if you have any memories of him that you could kindly share. Being in the ring with him, backstage, just what was your interaction like with him?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm really grateful for the time that I got to spend in Ring of Honor around people like him, because there were times, in the best of times, it really felt like it was like a family, and we were all, really close, like siblings or like brothers and sisters. And Jay was one of the people that made it feel like it was a community, or that it was a family. Because he treated everybody in that company with such respect and such compassion. whether you were the very top of the food chain or you were the guy at the very bottom, like I was
Yeah.
starting out. And thankfully, I think I was grateful or privileged enough rather to share the ring with him, I think twice,
Yeah.
as the Briscoe brothers in tag matches.
Mm.
And every time I remember being really nervous about that too, wrestling the Briscoes the first time, like because
I
they
can
they
imagine.
see yeah,
As a fan, they scared me when
intimidating.
it came over to the UK. I was just like, oh man, they scared the shit out of me.
They're intimidating people. They look like, backwoods, like, people from the movie like
Mm.
Deliverance, that are gonna, like attack you and just like hold you
Great
hostage.
film, but yeah, there's a few scenes that are just a bit fucked up.
Yeah, absolutely. But so, he comes up to me and he's just like the nicest guy that you could possibly ask for.
Yeah,
And it's like, he's like, hey, man, like, all right, what do you guys want to do? Like, let's like put this match together. Like, maybe you could like do a little bit of something here, or maybe you could kind of like stand up to me here and then we'll shut you down or like, cut you down and stuff. And it was cool. Like, every time I talked to him, he was always the nicest guy in the world to me. And there was one time, I can't remember exactly what pay-per-view it was, or what show it was, but he had just come back from a match, and I think he was like really feeling himself and really hyped up. And
yeah.
he came back and he was hugging everybody in the locker room, and then he just turned to me and look, like, we're not like best friends or anything like that at that point, but he turns to me and he just puts his arm on my shoulder and he says, I love you, baby, and I said, I love you too, man. And we
Mm.
had like a really nice moment shared together in the locker
So
room.
welcoming in that to hear that, just
Yeah, absolutely. I remember too. It's another funny story that like right after I wrestled Cody, we went and did a show in a casino in Michigan that
Mhm.
never aired anywhere because like the casino like paid for the footage and like never saw the light of day, the show. So
Wow.
like it lives in infamy. It's like it's non-canon or it's like out
Tony,
there.
Tony. Right, let's speak to Tony Khan about this. But now continue.
Right. And maybe Tony can get it somehow. But we did this show where I was in the dark match, like on the show
Hmm.
at the very beginning, wrestling one of the other local guys, which was also right after I'd eaten an all-you-can-eat buffet because I didn't know that I was booked for the show, but I ate like because they gave us these buffet vouchers at the show,
Yeah.
and I ate just so much food, and then I got a text saying, "Hey, do you have your gear? Because we want to put you on the show." And I was like, "Oh my God!" So what happened in that match was we had this short little match and Jay Briscoe comes out with a chair and like immediately just like throws the chair at my face. And I'm like, I see this chair coming and it's like slow motion. I'm like putting my hands up and I'm trying to like divert it somewhere else so it doesn't hit me. But like I fall down and like sell the chair shot. And then he picks me up and gives me the J driller. And I remember like one of the referees like coming over to me when I was selling the J driller on the floor, on the mat, and they were like, quick, roll out of the ring before he comes and does it again. And I was like, okay, all right. So we got out and did that. But the cool thing about that though is that they rung the bell after he threw the chair at me.
Yeah.
So technically speaking, I have a disqualification win against Jay Briscoe in
Oh
Michigan.
man.
So anytime we've ever had like a one-on-one or like a handicap match kind of thing, I'm technically undefeated against Jay Briscoe in that. But then every
Not many
other
people can say that, my man.
no, they can't. But then every other time we had a tag match, of course, he whooped my ass, of course. But yeah, just the nicest guy. And I once Ring of Honor shut down, I really hadn't gotten a chance to see him or talk to him after that happened. So
Yeah.
we haven't talked in a long time, but both of the Briscoe brothers, Jay and Mark, were always just two of the most down to earth, just real, genuine, kind people. And the wrestling world is worse off. Not just the wrestling world, honestly, the world in general
Mm.
is worse off for not having a guy like Jay Briscoe in it because,
They closed off
of,
one of the schools in this area. I mean,
yeah, of
that
course.
says a lot about a person, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And, great wrestler. We could talk about his work forever, but
Yeah.
an even better human being. And that's the real tragedy of the whole situation.
Hello there. I've got a special announcement for my next guest.
Hello, everybody. This is Taya Valkyrie La Güera Loca, 1/3 of the Death Dolls, and you are listening to What Do You Call It? Podcast.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. I had to take a quick break, but that was awesome to hear. One person who has been mentioned in this podcast, Cheeseburger.
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard a bad thing about him. I've had a few people from Ring of Honor who have nothing but good things to say about him. As a fan, I think he's awesome. It just seems like such a likable dude. Let me hear your stories. You've teamed with him as well. Obviously, you said he has a big part to play in your career as well. So please tell me about Cheeseburger, the man.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, like I wouldn't be where I am without him. He was a vital and critical part of, me building my wrestling foundation and figuring out who I was as a wrestler and as a person. And it's so crazy too because he's not that much older than me. There's only about like a 2-year difference, but like every time I see him, I think of him as like this wise old man.
Yeah.
Like his old sensei or something like that. I think it's because like the way he's the guy who like always wears flip flops and like always walks around kind of like an old man,
Yeah.
So I always tell him like jokingly that he's a 29-year-old man trapped in like a 65-year-old body.
How old he is?
Yeah, 29.
He's been around for a while. What bloody hell? I didn't realize it. I'm not saying I thought he was like 45 or something like that. He does,
Right.
I'm not saying he's old.
He's one of those guys too that started training at a very young age. So I mean,
okay, yeah.
started training when he was like maybe 17 years old. So
Yeah.
he's already got like 12 years in the game, even like though he's like in his 20s. But yeah, I mean, he's honestly like one of my best friends. And like I said, too, we've known each other for a long time. It hasn't been a long time in the grand scheme of both of our lives, but it's so hard for me to think of a time where he just like wasn't a part of my life, like providing me with support and guidance. And, has always been there for me when I really needed him, especially in the early years when I was trying to, find my way in the wrestling world. And he always looked out for me and still does. But, in the early stages of Ring of Honor, I didn't have an identity and I didn't have a direction to go in. And he took me under his wing, like literally on television. And, we became, we had a couple tag team matches together that I really look back fondly on. And then we became a 6-man tag team for a while and had a bunch of fun matches in the Ring of Honor trios.
Shinobi, what's the full name? I can't remember the full name now.
It was Shinobi Shadow Squad.
That's the one.
Yeah, I remember we were like thinking about like what were we going to be called, and we were trying to come up with all these names. We were like sitting like doing like a random name generator, like just trying to come up with like random like tag team 6-man names.
So we actually did.
Yeah, that's literally like what happened.
Right there. That's quite cool.
I think we just decided for some reason. I was like, or one of us suggested like, why don't we just be ninjas or something like fun and like wacky. The idea that we had tried to come up with was we were like, we should try and be like ROH's version of the New Day and just do like funny skits and
having a laugh.
Yeah. Try to like entertain people and like provide people with some like comedy and some humor, but then also have like serious wrestling matches, like when we're, in the ring. And it was something that in hindsight too, like, I wish we had had more time to like really develop it and kind of like figure out the kinks and tweak it to get it to where we really wanted it to be. Because it was short, like it only lasted for about a year. And I think that we hadn't really tapped into its full potential before we kind of splintered off and started doing our own thing. But I look back on that very fondly because we had a lot of experiences on the road together and different matches with different opponents that was super fun. And I always like to go back and watch those matches from time to time and kind of, go down memory lane and take a nostalgia trip. But, as far as the man is concerned, he's one of my best friends and, he inspires me with how much he works and consistently dedicates to his craft and just keeps pushing forward in the face of adversity. Because, he's one of these people that wrestling is his whole life. You know what I mean? And for me, like, I'm a person that I can't just have one thing going on at a time. For me, I very much need to have my hand in a bunch of different pots, stirring things at the same time. But I have a lot of admiration for somebody that can decide, I want to just do this and only this, and I will devote my entire life to doing it, because that's who he is. And you can really see that passion come through in how he trains his students now, because I don't know if I, have mentioned this or if you knew this already, but the Ring of Honor dojo eventually closed down and moved to Baltimore, Maryland, when they tried to turn it into like the Ring of Honor Performance Center back in the day. And then Berger took over the original dojo, and it's now his wrestling school. And he, works by himself to like create the next generation of wrestlers. And it's a really cool place that I'm glad that I came from. And
I think you've had the odd match there since he started, haven't you?
What's that?
You've had the odd match there, haven't you, since he took over? So at his dojo.
Yeah. Because he holds shows like in his dojo.
Yeah.
We do tapings and stuff sometimes for, like some of the newer people to get more experience, and for some of the, more experienced wrestlers to like work with them and stuff. But I think that, as a person, I got nothing but good stuff to say about him. The one thing that I wish he would do more of is answer my text messages right away when I text him. He doesn't do that, and
that's literally the only negative thing. Just pick up your fucking phone.
Just like pick up the phone when I text you. I know, don't leave me on red. I know you saw this message.
I've got a few friends like that. I'm not gonna name drop him, but I can relate.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, I text him like weird, random, miscellaneous things like all the time. Like if I have a thought about something, I'll immediately send him a message, just be like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And then he'll just like not respond to it, and then I'll bring it up to him the next time I see him, and then he'll kind of like brush it off by being like, "Oh, what? Oh, sorry, I thought I already responded to that." And I'm yeah, I bet you did. Yeah. So what do you think about it?
You're quite similar to me, mate. You're quite similar. I do that a little bit.
Yeah. But but on a personal note, he is big inspiration to me and my career, and he's helped me out more times than I can count. And I consider him to be a very close personal friend. I think if I wasn't even involved in wrestling anymore, I'd like to think that we would still be close, as close as we are now.
Yeah, no, I respect that, man. He just seems like a cool guy, and obviously I remember like when he used to come out, like this is when I properly got into Ring of Honor. He just always get a good reaction, and he's just such a likable guy. But for you to tell the story and just to hear thumbs up and good stuff about him, you've also had a few appearances in AEW wrestling against the Dark Order and Other Factory. Just want to hear about your experiences in AEW. Was there anyone that you reached out backstage? Anyone that you saw? I'm going to take this opportunity just to chew their ear off a little bit, get some knowledge and experience, and why not?
Yeah, I mean, working for AEW was a really fun learning experience. It was something that I had been trying to do for a while. I'd been sending feelers out there, and something that was kind of interesting was I was going through like kind of like a down period for a while after Ring of Honor kind of closed up shop, because I think that I and a lot of other people had hopes that, when they relaunched, that we'd kind of be back like in full force, like the way that we were. Obviously too, like life takes different roads and different branches. And, Tony Khan ended up buying the company and kind of turning it into his own vision for Ring of Honor. So, I was, I felt defeated at times because I had this yearning to kind of go back to Ring of Honor and be a part of it again in the way that I knew it, the way that it felt like home to me. And I remember, I was thinking for a while, I was just feeling not good about myself and my wrestling career and where things were going. And I remember like randomly one day, like I woke up and I saw an email on my phone and I was like, "You've been invited to the AEW Baltimore tapings." And I was like, "Oh, Okay, well, this is kind of coming right when I need something like this in my life.
Did you
So
not like expect? Sorry, did you not question it at first? Like, is this one of my mates or something, or like, is this a rib?
it didn't feel like real. Like I
Yeah,
was, I didn't know what I was expecting. Like maybe like them to like send me like a message in a bottle or to like send something via carrier pigeon, but it just wasn't exactly the way that I like kind of thought everything would go down.
yeah.
That's just you have your expectations and then reality often conflicts with those.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, I got to go two separate times and have those two dark matches against the Dark Order and then the Factory. And it was cool being there because there's so many people that are there from the Ring of Honor system that I knew when I was there. Because obviously, like they have people now like Jay Lethal and Christopher Daniels and Kazarian and a bunch of people. I feel guilty like naming names just because I left a whole bunch of people out, but it almost felt like a family reunion
Yeah.
at times because I'm just kind
I
of
heard it
now
must have made it a bit easy for you as well.
yeah. It was cool. I was surrounded by these people that I didn't get to have any contact with for like almost a year, and I got to meet a whole bunch of new people in the
Hmm.
AEW system, and it was it was a cool experience just to kind of see how that major television production or that major television product is like organized and structured and all the little pieces that are in place to make everything like work smoothly. It's so cool to see on people watch wrestling on TV. I don't think people realize sometimes just how many moving pieces have to be perfectly in place for a wrestling show.
Just the production alone is just insane, isn't it?
Yes, there's so many pieces of the puzzle that have to fit into place perfectly just to make that 2 hours of television that you're watching on TBS every week, go smoothly and go the way it's supposed to go. So that's always impressed me quite a bit, like how much work it goes into, making that a reality. But, it's cool to be surrounded by like people that were inspirational to me as well. Back then, like for example, like William Regal was there around that time still. And, when I came back from my match, both times, there are so many people like surrounding that like camera, that gorilla position. You're kind of like standing there and you're like, who should I go up to and ask for advice from? Because
Yeah.
like there's so many of them there, and I'm not going to monopolize everyone's time. So it's like, who should I go talk to? Like, there's like William Regal and like or like Matt Hardy's
So
like
much to
there.
choose from. I mean, it's like a kid in a candy shop. It's like, ooh.
Yeah, it's like I don't know what to pick from.
Yeah.
But that was a cool experience, and I learned a lot about working for television and kind of brushing up on the different skills that you have to have sharp when you're working for a television product. And yeah, man, nothing but positive experiences to say about working for AEW. I hope to kind of continue working for them as much as I possibly can into this year and kind of seeing what unfolds as a result of that. So
I'm sure you'll be back, mate. You'll be back. I'd like to know what other promotions have been highlights for you. What other promotions have you really enjoyed working for that stand out?
I would say that earlier this year I actually did my first wrestling stint for MLW.
Nice.
Yeah, Major League Wrestling. That they have a new show on Reels, a television channel in America, and on their YouTube show. I had been going and helping out and doing ring crew for them for a while, and I then got the chance to wrestle in a 6-man tag team match that was filmed in January. And the interesting part about that, though, is that I was playing a character that's on their show, like an Azteca henchman, because I don't know if you're familiar with Lucha Underground. Do you know what that is?
I know it is. I never really got into it just because it was hard to find like episodes for it in the UK.
Right. Well, I don't know if it's still on Netflix in the UK, but for a while it was. I would recommend going out of your way to watch it because it is a wild show that like a lot of different wrestlers have like come through. But MLW has some carryovers from the Lucha Underground show, like people who are from that.
The president, he's there now, isn't he? I forgot the guy's name.
Yes. And so basically I was a henchman on the show for like the evil like general manager.
Yeah.
And basically, so I was dressed up in like a black turtleneck sweater, black pants, black boots, a mask, and gloves
Yeah.
in like a really hot arena under really bright lights. So I was sweating my ass off when I wrestled for MLW, and I had a 6-man tag team match against Lindsay Dorado and a guy, La Estrella, I think was the other guy's name, and then a guy named Microman, which is a guy who is a Mexican. Luchador, a luchador wrestler, masked wrestler, who is, I think, he's very very small stature. I think he is.
Yeah, I've seen clips.
Yeah, yeah. So
I fucking love it,
yeah,
though.
it was cool. It was a fun match, a fun experience.
Yeah.
A team with another luchador named Mini Abismo Jr. and Delirious, who was my trainer. So it was a really cool, fun experience to work for MLW. I'm hoping that it'll continue to kind of happen with them more this year. Other places I've been to, I got to wrestle for Beyond Wrestling, which was really cool. Like a lot of independents I've been able to hit, more like last year and continuing this year up in that Northeast area is something that I've been doing a lot. So places like Limitless Wrestling in Maine, that's another good one that I've really been enjoying as well. Places like Blitzkrieg Pro and Pro Wrestling Grind in Massachusetts. So some television stuff, but also the indies as well. And the indies are booming right now, which is amazing. I love working independent wrestling shows.
Just at one point the world was shut down, and then now you've got these opportunities again.
Yeah, and I love just going to different independent wrestling shows, meeting new people, reuniting with some of my other, former Ring of Honor friends, like Cheeseburger when we're on the same show, or Hot Sauce Tracy Williams and people like that. So I've been blessed to be able to do a lot of things, and I'm hoping to continue that trend into this year. One of the things that I would really like, a personal goal for me, is I would really love to wrestle for New Japan's America promotion. Yeah. I mean, I know that they have their home promotion over in Japan, but I'm state.
But it's still the brand, absolutely, and obviously they still put on like top-notch wrestling.
Yeah, I'm a stateside boy at heart, so I would love to be able to wrestle for New Japan of America at some point as well. I think that would be a really fun experience for me.
No, that's awesome, man. Basically, we're at the end of the interview. Ryan, I want to give you the platform. Anything you want to say, anything you want to promote, anything you want to get off your chest, anything, man, you can say whatever you want. Obviously, you've been a great guest. We enjoyed your stories and your journey. Obviously, still pretty early on in your career. I mean, challenging for the world title, like your second match, that's unheard of. But
there's only one way to go from there, and it's down, right? Like, where are you supposed to go after that? You can follow me on you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Rabid Ryan Mooney. You can go to prowrestlingtees.com and type in Ryan Mooney, and you can find all of your favorite Honey Badger related merchandise.
Cool designs, by the way. I had a little peek, some cool designs in there.
Yep, absolutely. Oh yeah, and go to Pro Wrestling Tees and buy the Jay Briscoe Memorial T-shirt, because I just did that yesterday, and it came to my house, and all of the proceeds are going to go to Jay Briscoe's family, and I think that that's a wonderful way to support them in this time. But yeah, go and buy my stuff as well if you want to support me. Follow me on the socials to get updated on where I'm going to be, what places I'm going to be wrestling for next.
It sounds like you're everywhere at the moment.
yeah. Well, I'm hoping to.
That's good. That's good.
I'm hoping to get out there and go to as many places as possible this year, meet as many new people as I can.
Maybe the UK, mate. Maybe the UK. Maybe not this year, but when
the UK is still yet to be checked off of my bucket list.
Mate,
so
you are more than welcome.
Somebody out there wants to bring me to the UK and give me my first UK wrestling match, I would absolutely love it, and I would endorse it 100%. But yeah, follow me on the socials and go and buy my merch if you want to support me, or come out to a wrestling show and support me if you're in the area. And yeah, but thanks for having me on the show, man. I mean, it's really cool to come on and talk to people about wrestling and talk to people about life. I love these conversations, and I think that they're some of the best parts of life, is just talking to people about the things that we're all passionate about. So
like, literally, different parts of the world, but obviously we just have that one thing in common, and then we just expand on that and just have this easy conversation. Time's flown by; it's been like an hour or so, and obviously we probably can talk more. But it's just been really good. Obviously, I listened to your interview before, and obviously I've been watching matches as well. It's just like, obviously, just so talented, and seeing the transformation from Ryan Nova to the Rabid Honey Badger, Ryan Mooney.
Oh,
But appreciate it, man. Thank you for coming on. Obviously, I know you're a busy man, but we've rescheduled this. But thank you. If you can like this video, subscribe to this account, and follow me on my social media handles in the description below. That'd be much appreciated. I'll put Ryan's details as well in there below, so you can follow him and keep up to date on his journey and what he's going to be up to. Who knows where he'll appear next? But for now, everyone, I hope you all have a good weekend, and you'll hear from me soon. Take care.